Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the second session of MPC and the third session of the school. And today it's my pleasure to basically introduce Michele Ciampi that we have from the University of Edinburgh. And the title of lecture, you can see that On Round Optimal MPC protocols. Michele is a computer science Salerno in 2012, 14, and 18, respectively. His PhD thesis, entitled Round and Computational Efficiency of Two-Party Protocols, won the best PhD thesis in theoretical computer science, basically from the Italian chapter of the European Association for Theoretical Computer Science. And during his studies, he had a visit from University of UCLA and the Aarhus team. From 2018 till 2021, he has been working as a research association at the Blockchain Technology Laboratory at the University of Edinburgh, where he is currently a consular fellow. So his research focuses on cryptography, more especially on zero-knowledge proofs, multi-party computations, and blockchains. And it's a great pleasure to have him here. And the stage is yours, Michele. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot for the beautiful introduction, Karim, and the pleasure is mine to be here and talk about multi-party computation. So multi-party computation, you have heard already about the concept. I will just briefly recap what it is. So we have a set of parties. Each party has an input. And these parties want to jointly evaluate a function. Okay, in this case, the parties want to.
Michele, sorry for interrupting. Can you share your? I mean, just to run this slides in full screen because it's just in a small figure. Or maybe.
No, I am doing it full screen, so I don't know why.
Maybe can you run it again because it.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't run. Exactly. I don't know, for some reason. I can see in a small on full.
Oh, yeah, let me try it again.
Okay.
Okay, let's see. Is it full screen?
No, not yet. I don't know what's the problem. Heidi, can you help us? What's the problem with this, or?
Kerry, what is the problem?
It seems that he tries to play in a full screen, but we cannot see.
Do you share your screen, entire screen, or a special window?
Just a special window. Maybe let me try to share the
so
entire
please,
screen.
if it's possible, I mean,
yeah, let me do
it's
that.
against your privacy, but
okay,
please share the entire screen.
Yeah, I'll hide all the critical stuff. Let's see. All right. Okay. Does it work now?
It works.
At bottom at the slides. I mean, if you look at the bottom, just close it to make the recording better.
One second. Okay. Is it good now?
Yes.
All right. So we have this set of parties, and each party has an input and that doesn't want to disclose to the others. On the other hand, each of these parties wants to compute a function over this set of inputs. Okay, and so what we want is that we allow these parties to exchange messages over some communication channel. I will give more details on this later on. What we want is that at the end of this process, even if some of these parties are corrupted, all the parties will get the output of the function, and moreover, the corrupted party will learn nothing more than what they already knew, which is basically their inputs and the output of the function they have jointly evaluated. Okay, so formally, we characterize this security I just described at a very high level in the following way. So what we consider is an ideal world where parties do not communicate with each other, okay? So parties have an input and there is some trusted party. So now the parties will send their input to this trusted party, and the trusted party will do just a local evaluation of the function over all the inputs of the parties and will send back the reply to the honest and to the corrupted parties, okay? So this idealized world, if we trust this central node to whom we send our inputs, like it's very good. Like, I mean, it's super efficient. Like you can do communication in just 2 rounds of interaction. The problem is that it's not realistic to assume something like that. Okay, and that's the reason why this is just an idealized world that we use to capture the type of security we want. So ideally, that's what we want to realize. We want to realize a protocol in the real world that where the corrupted parties learn what they learn in this idealized world. And by how we define this idealized world, here you can see that the corrupted party learns nothing more than the output of the computation and, you know, just what he already knew about his own input. We will be in the dishonest majority setting. So we assume that any set of parties can be corrupted, and that in the worst case, there is only one honest party. There is no setup. So parties will just have access to a communication channel. There is no common reference string. There is no public infrastructure. There is nothing. And the parties are malicious in the sense that they can deviate from the protocol description the way they like. And moreover, we'll consider only computational security, which means that security will be analyzed against probabilistic polynomial time adversaries. This should not come as a surprise, because in the dishonest majority setting, like, it's not possible to do secure computation in an information theoretic way. Okay, so if we are not doing any cheating here, that's the best actually we can do for the dishonest majority setting, unless we add some form of setup, quite strong setup. Okay, so back to the definition of security. Our definition of security will be black box, in the sense that to describe in a more formal way what I just mentioned, like what does security, what is a secure MPC protocol? So we say that an MPC protocol is secure if for any coalition of in the ideal world that basically can learn and can output the same information that the coalition in the real world could. Okay, and we call the ideal world adversary a simulator. Okay, that's a simulator. A simulator is just a way to name ideal world adversaries. Okay, so what we want again is that for every real world adversary A, for every coalition, there exists a simulator that can basically compute everything that the real world adversary can. Okay, and now if we show that the output of the simulator is the same as the output of the adversary in the real world, then we can have that our protocol, we can claim that our protocol is secure. Why? Because, well, we are able, the simulator is capable of output the same thing the adversary can output, but the simulator has no information whatsoever on the input of the honest parties by how the ideal world is defined. Okay, and it is quite tricky to construct this type of simulators, but at a high level, if we really want the simulator to output something similar to what the real world adversary output, the simulator needs to somehow know how the corrupted parties in the real world behave, okay? And so this means that the simulator needs to have some type of access, needs to have some capability of interacting with these corrupted parties in the real world. And in particular, what we allow is to the simulator to have what we call an oracle access to the real world adversaries. Okay, so the simulator can internally execute the real world adversaries and can send messages to those parties and see how they react. Okay. In particular, for example, so we have that in the real world, like this gray party here on the bottom has an input x1, right, and runs the protocol with the input x1. Now, what we want by definition is that the simulator should be able to send to the ideal functionality, well, the same input that this gray adversarial party would use in the real world. Okay, so there is like this matching we need to do between what happens in the real world and in the real world. So in particular, this means that the simulator must be able to extract the input of the gray party here and send this input to the ideal world. Okay. So when we say black box simulation, what we mean is that the adversary has oracle access to these adversarial parties, cannot see the code of these adversarial parties, can just, again, make queries and receive answers from those. And at a very high level, like the work of a simulator can be distinguished into main categories. So a simulator must be able to extract the input of the corrupted parties. Okay, because again, we want corrupted parties in the real world. So the minimal task that the simulator needs is to perform this type of extraction. And then there is the second phase, which is forcing the output. Okay, so we want that what the corrupted parties get in the real world is consistent with what the simulator would output. Okay, and in particular, you may have an adversarial party in the real world that doesn't just output y, which is the output of the computation, but output some crazy function of the output. I don't know, h of y, where h is some function that only the adversary knows what it is. Okay, and so the simulator must be able to produce exactly the same behavior in the ideal world. So in particular, the simulator must be able to force the output y to the adversary in such a way that then, because the simulator has access to this adversary will be able to produce this h of y also in this ideal world. Okay. And what is important also for the definition to make sense is that these simulators, these ideal world adversaries, must be efficient. In particular, these simulators are required to be polynomial time or expected polynomial time. I will not go into the details of why expected polynomial time is needed, but I just want to say that when we want to design protocols with a very low round complexity, unfortunately, we cannot have a polynomial time simulator, so we need the simulator to run in expected polynomial time. This is still useful and meaningful, and it's actually the best we can. So now the question is like, okay, the simulator must be able to do these crazy things, and but how does it do that? How does it do that? Like, we are in the plain model. And so if we were, for example, relying on some form of setup, the usual way simulators work is, for example, by controlling this setup. Okay, so the simulator kind of needs an advantage, needs a way to cheat, to perform this extraction and this phase of forcing the output. But here we are in the plain model, we said, so there is no setup. So there is it's not clear what type of leverage we can give to the simulator. Okay, and so the advantage that actually the simulator has here is to perform rewind. Okay, so we said that the simulator has oracle access to the adversaries. In particular, the simulator can decide also to reset an adversary, because an adversary can be seen just as a piece of code, okay, that we can run, and we can run multiple times. We can run it multiple times with different randomness, okay? And if you have access to an adversary in an oracle manner, as I just said, you can do that, okay? So the simulator, so this is called like rewinding, okay? A rewind is basically a reset of the adversary that the simulator can perform, that anytime actually you have so in particular, this means that the simulator could pretend to be an honest party, interact with an adversary, and then at some point it says, okay, let me change some of the messages I sent you earlier, okay? And let's see how you reply. I want to give you a quick example of how this works. So let's say that we design a protocol, an MPC protocol. This is a very complex protocol, has many pieces together, but we require the following. We require the party here, the party on the right, the gray party, to perform a 2 out of 2 secret sharing of its input. So if the input is x1, then this party will do a secret sharing. We'll get 2 shares, A0 and A1, and he will commit to those shares. Okay, and now the protocol prescribes the other party, this red party here, to toss a coin, and this is just a random bit. And now the gray party will reply with the opening of the commitment with index B. So, and that's all, okay? So in the normal execution of the protocol, there are many things happening, but there is also this piece of this small protocol, sub-protocol, that, as you can see here, it doesn't leak anything about the input of the gray party. I mean, here we have, in the first round, 2 commitments, which are hiding, which means that as long as we don't open one of these commitments, well, we will get that 1 share is protected, okay? And because this is a 2 out of 2 secret sharing, then it means that the input of the gray parties is not compromised. It remains secret. But the reason why you may see something like this in MPC protocols, in zero knowledge protocols, and this is a very common technique, is because it helps in the simulation. So when this party here is corrupted, what happens is that the simulator may run a first interaction with this corrupted party by sending oracle queries. In particular, the first oracle query will be 0, will be like, give me the opening of the commitment 0. And the simulator will receive it. Then the simulator can rewind, which in the real world, like corrupted parties cannot rewind like honest parties, and honest parties cannot rewind corrupted parties, right? But in the simulation here, in the proof, the simulator has access to extract the input of the adversary. Okay? So this is just one technique that is used, and this is like very high level. There are many problems in making sure that all of this works fine. But this is like more or less how rewinding helps. Okay. And now, what did we say? We say that the simulator needs to act like the corrupted parties, right? So now that the simulator has extracted the input, the simulator will query the idle functionality, will get back the output, and then there is another procedure that the simulator can use to make sure that what this gray adversary will get as part of its output is actually Y. Okay? And this can be done in a similar way using these rewinding tricks to extract a trapdoor, to extract some special information that allows the simulator to cheat, let's say. All right. So now, why are we interested in studying multi-party computation in the setting I just described? Well, first of all, it's quite nice to not assume that there is a trusted setup. So the parties really don't need to trust anyone to generate in a good way some common random string, some common reference string, right? So it's quite, it's really like what we would like to have. We don't want to trust anyone but ourselves. Some negative negative aspects. So in particular, in the dishonest majority setting, we cannot have in general the property of a guaranteed output delivery. So guaranteed output delivery, just as a recap, means that we would like to guarantee that if honest parties start a protocol, at the end of this protocol, these parties will get the output. Okay. In the dishonest majority setting, this cannot be done. Unless, again, assuming some strong, some crazy assumption or some strong form of setup. And neither fairness is possible. Okay, fairness is like a relaxation of guaranteed output delivery, which fairness guarantees that if the adversary gets the output, then also the honest parties will be able to get the output. Okay? So unfortunately, we cannot guarantee even this simpler property. And the reason why this is not possible is very simple. So first of all, I want you to note that we are studying the dishonest majority setting. So any result we study in this setting, it applies also to the two-party setting, right? Because the two-party setting where only one party is corrupted, well, this is just, it means that we are dealing with MPC where we have just two parties and the majority of the parties are corrupt, okay? So we will study considering and working in the two-party setting also because it's simpler. And so the reason why fairness is not possible in the design output, okay? I mean, some party must at some point get the output before than the other. And now the problem is very simple. Like, if this party is corrupted, once that it receives the output, it may just stop and not send the last message to the purple party here that would allow this party to complete the computation and get the output as well. So that's more or less why we cannot get fairness. And there is another problem. Composition is problematic. So we know that if we have some form of setup, we can argue about the security of the protocol when it's run together with other cryptographic protocols. When you do not have setup, arguing about composition is very problematic. So what it means is that if you start adding multiple executions of the protocol that may be running concurrency, it's not clear that security is still maintained. Okay. So for any protocol you design, you need to prove that the protocol remains secure if, for example, there are parallel executions of this protocol or there are concurrent executions of the protocol. Okay, and in general, it's very hard to make this type of proofs. Okay, so for the focus, the focus of the presentation then will be on just standalone security. Standalone security means that when we argue about the security of a protocol, we will assume that this protocol is run in isolation. So there is no other instance of the protocol that is running in concurrency. This is something that can be done. Like we can, it's possible to argue about concurrent security, but this requires usually more rounds of communication. So we just want to see like what is the best we can do in this simplified setting where we assume that only one protocol is basically run. Another thing, we will be dealing with static corruption, which means that the identities of the corrupted parties are fixed at the beginning of the experiment. Okay, the adversary needs to decide that at the beginning, and he cannot change. He cannot change his idea. And so what we want to understand here is like what is the minimal round of communication that we need to send over a channel in order to have a protocol that is secure in the setting I just described to you. Okay, but so why do we care about round complexity? So round complexity is an important complexity measure because each round of communication, anytime that we need to send a message over a channel, unfortunately, there is not that much we can improve in the sense that each round, each message will require at least the speed of light to go from point A to point B, right? So, I mean, like, reducing rounds means that basically it's the only way we can reduce, you know, the latency of the protocol, right? And in reality, of course, like, I mean, speed of light would be ideal, but in reality, like, we don't achieve this speed. I mean, like, it's not like a straight path, and you know, it takes, for example, 100 milliseconds to go from message to go from London to LA. Now you understand that if I have many rounds, then the protocol is, you know, quite slow and it's not useful, right? So that's why we want to minimize the number of rounds. And let's start now by understanding what is this number. What is the minimal number of rounds we need to compute some meaningful functionality? And the functionality we consider now is very simple. It's the coin tossing functionality. In the coin tossing functionality, the parties don't have an input, and we will focus just on the two-party case. So parties don't have an input. They just require, in the ideal world, the ideal functionality to get an output. In this case, like, the command to get an output is denoted with out. So upon receiving this command, the coin tossing functionality will sample a string uniformly at random. In this case, it will be a bit string of size n, and it will deliver this string to our parties. Okay, and now we want to understand how many rounds we need to compute this very simple functionality. And in Crypto 2004, Katz and Ostrowski showed more than log n coins. Okay, think about n as our security parameter. So what we're going to show here is that if we want the two parties to get the output, okay, the output of this coin tossing. Then they need to exchange at least 5 messages between each other. Okay. So how does this proof work? So assume that by contradiction, you do have a protocol that realizes the coin tossing functionality in just 4 rounds. Okay. And now consider the following adversary. So this adversary has a set in his mind. It's a set of strings. It doesn't matter what those strings are. I will tell you what is the size of the set. But for now, just think about this set that we do not with good as a set of strings. So the adversary behaves in this way. So this is a 4-round protocol. So these 2 parties start exchanging messages between each other. And at this point, in the 3rd round, the adversary will get the output. Okay, we know that at least one of these 2 parties will get the output first. Let's say that it's the adversary that gets the output first. And now, if this output that we denote with y belongs to the set good, then the adversary will say, fine, I like this value, I will continue. So also the honest part, this party will trigger an abort. It's really nothing special. So this purple party here behaves like an honest party. It's just that when it gets some outputs, it just doesn't like it and it rejects. Nothing special. Okay. Now, if we said that by contradiction we have a 4-round protocol, 4-round 2-party protocol, it means that by definition there exists a simulator, right, that we can use to simulate the behavior of this purple corrupted party. And what we said about the simulator is that by definition, a simulator must be able to first extract the output of the corrupted party, and 2, extract the input of the corrupted party, and 2, force an output to the corrupted party. So this is a very simple functionality. So there is no output to extract. Parties do not have an input. There is no input to extract. Parties do not have an input. So the simulator means that it must be able to force an output. So in particular, the simulator will now query the ideal word functionality, will get back a string, okay? And by definition, we know that there is a way in which the simulator can somehow force this output to the corrupted party in such a way that the corrupted party will see actually this y value. And now the corrupted party behaves the way she likes. I mean, if y belongs to this set good, then she will continue, otherwise it will abort. Okay, but now observe the following. So how could a simulator work? The nice thing is that there are very few rounds here. So the simulator doesn't really have room to play the type of game I showed you before, like this type of cut and choose game where I say, okay, let me see what you get. I want to see like open commitment number 1, open commitment number 2, like this form of cut and choose. Because there is just no room for that. Like if the simulator rewinds and sends a new first round, I mean, it doesn't gain anything really, because like sending a new first round is just like restarting a new competition from scratch. So that's something everybody can do. And okay, rewinding then the last round. I mean, this is also not that useful. I mean, like once that you send a 3rd round to the corrupted party must have gotten the output. And at that point, it's useless for the simulator to. Is that here, because there are not that many rounds, there is no room for this type of cut and choose. So the simulator doesn't really have an advantage. Even if it could rewind, rewinds here are not that helpful. So in some sense, what it means is that if a simulator does not get any advantage via rewinds, it means that the simulator could potentially be executed in the real world. So in particular, what happens here is that what we can do is that we can now design an adversary. And this adversary can internally run this simulator that we know it exists by definition. And what happens here? What happens here is that this adversary will just act as a proxy between an honest party, okay? Now we have an honest party, the purple party is now honest. And the messages that the simulator sent. We know that at some point the simulator will query the ideal functionality, and our adversary here will emulate the behavior of the ideal functionality. And it will but it will not like behave in a correct way. In particular, this adversary will sample a value from the set that we denote with good. Okay, we'll send this value to the simulator. And now, by definition, we know that the simulator is able to force this output to the honest party. So in some sense, what we are doing here is that we are designing an adversary that can force any type of output it wants to an honest party. And this is like against how the coin tossing functionality works. The coin tossing functionality works like sample a uniformly random string, and that's the output of the computation. Whereas here we are saying that the adversary can sample an element from a specific subset that we denote with good, and can force this output to an honest party. Okay. So in particular, what happens is that, let's say that we define the set good in such a way that the size of good divided by 2 to the n is this value here, okay? 1 divided by 2qn. So what it means is that in the ideal world, the probability that a value from the set good appears in the output is just 1 divided by 2 times qn, okay? This is nothing special. Whereas what we have in the real world is that the simulator, because the simulator is able to force this output, and let's say that this attack is successful with probability 1 over qn, the probability that a string that belongs to the set good appears in the real world is 1 divided by qn. And this is a contradiction, okay? This is a contradiction because what we have here is that there are strings that are output that are more likely to appear in the real world than in the ideal world. And this contradicts immediately the security of the security definition of multi-party computation or two-party computation. So the main takeaway from this is that because we don't have enough rounds, the simulator use the simulator, okay, in order to force an output to an honest party. And this is not supposed to happen. Like an adversarial party is not supposed to force the output he wants. And this is at a high level, like why we cannot realize the coin tossing functionality in 4 rounds. Okay. The same impossibility can be extended to other functionalities. I mean, this is a very simple functionality, and but you can imagine that something similar applies to a big category of functionality. So in general, this means that if you want to design a protocol that can realize any functionality, we need at least 5 rounds. And that's what we're going to do now. So we had a negative result that shows that we need at least 5 rounds. Now let's see how to construct a 5-round protocol. So this protocol was presented in the same paper, like in Chancellor 2004, and it used it uses the following building blocks. So the first building block is a 4-round protocol, a 4-round oblivious transfer protocol. So in particular, this oblivious transfer protocol, it realizes an OT functionality which is extended compared to what you have seen in the previous lecture. It's basically very simple. Instead of being like one execution of the OT functionality, it's like it consists of n sequential executions of the OT functionality. So what I mean by that is that instead of the input of the sender being just a pair, so here we have n pairs. Okay, we have L0, 1, L1, 1, okay, and so on. Similarly, the receiver, instead of having just one bit, the receiver has here n bits. Okay? And the first bit will be used to select which element from the first pair to get, the second bit, which element from the second pair to get, and so on. Okay, just think about parallel repetitions of the OT functionality. Okay, but for simplicity, let's have a protocol that already does that in 4 rounds. It realizes this OT extended functionality. Okay, the second building block they use is a zero-knowledge protocol that also consists of 4 rounds. So a zero-knowledge protocol can be also seen as a 2-party protocol. In particular, it's a 2-party protocol that realizes the following ideal world functionality. So we have a prover and a verifier. The prover is on the right, the verifier is on the left. So the prover sends X and W, where X is a statement and W is a witness. And the functionality, upon receiving X and W, it will check if X and W belongs to some relation. Okay, this can be any NP relation. For example, X could be a graph, and Y and W is an Hamiltonian cycle. Okay? And the X and W belong to the relation if W is an Hamiltonian cycle for the graph G. And now the output of the ideal functionality is a bit 0 or 1. 1 to say that, well, yes, the pair I received from the prover belongs to the relation, and 0 otherwise. Okay, and the verifier will get the reply. The other gadget we're going to use is a garbage circuit. So you have seen this before. The notation we are using here is the following. So basically, we have a garbling algorithm. The garbling algorithm takes as input a function, G, and returns 2 things. It returns a garbage circuit with denote with C. And then for each input of this garbage circuit, we will have a pair of 2 labels, or one key will be the key that encodes the input 0, and one key encodes the input for 1. Okay, so I will have a total of 2n keys, where n is the number, represents the number of inputs that the function G can take. Okay, in particular, n is the size of the input, in the sense that the input is a bit string of size n. Okay. Okay, so once we do the garbling, then there is an evaluation algorithm. So the evaluation algorithm takes as input our garbage circuit, and takes as input only 1 key per input. Okay, in particular, for each input of the garbage circuit, you need to select whether you want this input to be 0 or 1. And to do that, you just take, for example, in the case of the first input, you go to the first pair of labels and you select whether you want the label for 0 or the label for 1. And this represents your first label. Okay, you repeat this process for all the bits of your input. In this case, the input is Y. And what you get is that if you evaluate the Garber circuit using this procedure, you will be able to get G of Y. So the valuation of the function G, no matter what this function is, on input Y. In particular, what you have is that if you are an evaluator or the evaluator is a corrupted party, despite the fact that the evaluator has the garbling of the circuit for the function G and this set of labels or keys, the function G remains hidden. Gadget we are going to use is a commitment. Okay, commitment is like an encryption scheme with additional property that once we open this commitment, in the sense that once we show what is the value that was encrypted, there is only one value to which a commitment can be opened. Okay, so we cannot convince a receiver that we committed to the message M0, and then later on we say, oh no, look, actually I committed to the message M1. That cannot be. I commit to a message. If I decide to open this, I need to open to the same message. This is the binding property. Okay? All right, so let's go to the protocol now. So the input of the purple party is X, the input of the gray party is Y. And we will start by designing a protocol that is 4 rounds, but where only one party gets the output. Okay? So this is the first step. We finally want to design a 5-round protocol where both parties get the output, but let's start from something simpler. So how does this 4-round protocol work? So first of all, the purple party, which here acts as the sender, because the gray party here will get the output, so the gray party will be a receiver in some sense. So the first thing the purple party does is that if it's f, the function that these two parties want to compute, then the sender, the purple party, will compute a garbling of what function? Of the function f parameterized by its own input x. Okay? So the input x is hardwired in the description of the function. And then the purple party will get the garbling, okay, that we denote with C of x and a set of labels. Fine. And this party here will then commit to the garble circuit and to this set of labels. Now we need a way for the receiver to get the right labels. What are the right labels? So ultimately, we want the receiver to evaluate this garble circuit. And we said that to evaluate the garble circuit, for each of the pairs, like the receiver needs one key, one label. And this label needs to be consistent with the input. One label via running this oblivious transfer protocol we have described earlier. Okay, so the input now for the sender to this OT is just n pairs. Okay, and whereas the input for the receiver to this OT is just n bits. So, and each bit now will be used to select one label from each of the individual pairs that represent the input of the sender. So one thing it's important here to notice is that the sender cannot just give all the labels in the clear to the receiver, because if we do that, then we get no security on the garble circuit. So what I said before, that the function remains protected, remains hidden to an evaluator, it holds as long as an evaluator has only one key per each input wire of the garble circuit. Okay, if we give, for example, to the receiver the label L01 and L11, then it might be that the receiver will be able to learn everything about the function. In particular, in this case, the function is parameterized by X, which is the input of the sender, which means that the receiver will be able to learn X. And that's something we clearly don't want. Okay, so to make sure that the receiver gets exactly one key per each input, we use oblivious transfer. Okay, and now we are almost that parties here are corrupted. So parties can deviate the way they want. And there are many things that a deviating sender can do here. For example, a sender could just not do the garbling of the function f. You could do the garbling of a completely different function. So the receiver may get then an output that it's not really the output of f of x, comma, y, which is what the receiver wants to compute. And the other problem could be, for example, that the input the sender is using in the OT is completely inconsistent with the label that he got as part of the output of the garbling procedure, right? So because there are these many adversarial actions that the purple party can do, that's why we need the zero knowledge proof. So the zero knowledge proof will be a zero knowledge proof for a very complicated statement that will make sure, will guarantee that the value X, which is the input of the sender, was used as input of a garbling scheme to generate a garbling for the function f of x, and moreover that the garbling scheme was actually the one committed in the second round of the protocol. Okay, and that's basically how the protocol works for the case where only one party gets the output. So now, but because like you will be able to get one level per input through the output of the OT, and then the garbage circuit, he will receive it in the clear in the last round, and that's all. Now he can run the evaluation algorithm and compute f of x, comma y. So what we have done here is now we have constructed a quite sophisticated tool. I mean, it's a 4-round protocol, but it's a 4-round protocol that we can use to evaluate any function we want. There are no restrictions, and as long as the functions are efficiently computable, we can do that. And now the idea is that we want to use this tool to extend our abstraction to the case where both parties get the output. So one trivial idea to do that would be to say that, well, the gray party now gets the output, and well, just send this output back to the purple party, and we have a total of 5 rounds. So this doesn't work in our setting because, again, parties here are malicious, which means that the gray party may receive, upon receiving the output, he may just send something completely different to the purple party. So we need somehow a way to guarantee that what the gray party sends to the purple party in the 5th round, it corresponds to the output he got from the execution of this 2PC protocol. And how this can be done? This is a quite standard technique. So basically, we use our 2PC protocol to realize a function g. Okay, so ultimately we want to realize the function f. Okay, but we consider a 2PC protocol for the function g. What does g do? The description of g is at the bottom here. So g takes as input X and Y, which are always the inputs of these parties, but moreover takes as input a key of a message authentication code. So what happens here is that G will compute the output of the function f, which is what we want at the end. But in addition, he will compute an authentication. It's like a signature of the output. And that's the output of the computation. So we have the actual output, f of x, comma y, and is that now the sender is the one that will generate the key, the message authentication code key, and it will run the protocol now using not just X as input, but also the key. Whereas the receiver will just run the 2PC protocol using the input Y. At the end of the protocol, the receiver will get Z, which is the output, fine, and a signature of Z. Okay. Now what happens is that if the gray party here is corrupted, it may send a different Z prime, for example. But if it does that, it means that the verification procedure of the message authentication code will fail. Because it's like, MEC here guarantees that you can authenticate a message only if you have the key K. Okay? The MEC is like the symmetric key version of a digital signature. So there is only one key to sign and one key to verify. And given that the key is protected, the receiver does not have the key. So the only way why this verification procedure will be successful is only because, well, the receiver here has behaved honestly and they actually forwarded the correct Z and Z stuff. Okay, and that's how we enforce honest behavior. Okay, so so far we have learned basically that we need at least 5 rounds of communication if we want to compute some that we just showed can be instantiated from generic and standard assumptions. In particular, it's possible to instantiate this protocol based on one-way trapdoor permutations. Yeah, it seems like we did some good progress, but 5 rounds are still a lot. Okay, so let's see. Maybe if we consider a different communication channel, maybe we can do better.
Maybe, excuse me, Michele, we can take a time to ask if there is a question from audience.
Yeah.
Is we are already in a 1 hour talk. Yeah. So is there any question? If yes, just raise your hand. I will unmute you and you can ask the questions. Maybe meanwhile, I can ask one short question myself. So you mentioned at the beginning that we can basically extend these results for zero-knowledge proofs, of course, because they are a special case of this multi-party protocols. But my question was that, so in zero-knowledge proofs, there are cases that verifier doesn't have any, input, or even it has an input, prover knows that. For example, imagine that we want to prove that y is equal to f of x and witness, and x and y are statements and the witness is the secrecy. So in that case, I guess these rounds are a bit high. Yeah, we can go to the 3 rounds or even, less rounds. Yeah, is it okay, or what's
no? Actually, no. You cannot go to 3 rounds. Actually, with black box simulation, and if you have polynomial time assumptions, okay, you want just polynomial time assumptions, and you want the lower bound for zero knowledge. So you cannot have 3 rounds zero knowledge.
Okay, it doesn't matter even if the verifier's input is public.
No, yeah, exactly. Yeah, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, this was my question. Okay, I got it.
Yeah. And actually, the way you prove that 4 round is a lower bound, the proof works very similarly to what I showed you here. So basically, you show that if there exists a simulator for a 3-round protocol, then actually this simulator can be used by a corrupt party to contradict soundness.
Okay, I see.
And yeah, and this proof is inspired by that proof, which is much older. It's 1986.
Mm-hmm. Let me just check also the Discord. Yeah, apparently it's nothing there. Okay, so maybe we can continue then.
We can either continue or just take. I mean, this is a good moment where to take a break. Maybe just.
Yeah, maybe we can take, because yeah, we still have time. Maybe we can take 5 minutes break or 10 minutes if the audience, I mean, they want to basically have a break. And if you have any question, just put in this Discord server, or you can just raise your hand and ask the question.
Okay, so we start at 10 then, right? At past
yeah,
10.
we can start in, I mean, 10 minutes later. Yeah, it's maybe easier.
Okay, fantastic.
Okay,
Sounds
see you.
good. We need 5 rounds, and that's the best we can hope to do to realize any functionality and in a secure way. So 5 rounds are still a lot, right? So maybe let's see whether we can slightly change the communication channel to get something better. So in particular, let's consider a channel where in each round, I don't need to wait for the other party to speak. So basically here, in each round, everyone, in the 2-party case, we have just 2 parties, so both parties in each round will speak at the same time. Okay. So we have the bandwidth, let's assume we have the bandwidth to do that, and let's see what happens in this model. Because the hope is that here, we are sending more stuff in each round. So maybe we can save something. And in this setting, we will assume that when we have a corrupted party, the corrupted party is always rushing. So honest parties will speak always at the same time. Okay. But when we need to prove the security of the protocol, we will assume that the adversary is rushing, which means that before computing the ith round of the protocol, the adversary will wait to receive the ith message from the honest party. Okay. This is like a stronger adversary. So if you prove security against such a strong adversary, you also have security against an adversary that does everything independently from the messages he receives from the honest party, at least with respect to the ith round. Okay, and now the question is, how many rounds can we save? So can we compute functions, for example, in 3 rounds other than 5? And unfortunately, we will show that that's not possible. Okay, so let's assume by contradiction, as before, that this time we have a 3-round protocol like the one we have in the picture. Okay, so in these, the black messages are the messages that go from the purple party here, from Alice to Bob, and the red messages are the messages that go from Bob to Alice. And so we have a protocol, those are the messages of the protocol, and this protocol, by contradiction, realizes the coin tossing functionality, okay, where we can toss more than log n coins. And now let's see what happens here. So if we now look at the first round of Bob and at the second round of Bob, I mean, the first round of Bob it must be independent from the first round of Alice. That's just because we said that parties speak at the same time. So round 1 cannot depend on round 1 of the other party. Round 2, of course, does depend on round 1. Bob may need round 1 to compute his own round 2. Okay, so we can now, what we are doing here is the following. We are saying, let's take a protocol that is secure in this new model that we call simultaneous message model, okay? And we show that if such a protocol exists, then we can turn this protocol into one that remains secure, but that runs over the communication channel we have seen at the beginning of this lecture. Such model, each party speaks once in each round. Okay, so let's say that Alice speaks first. So, and Alice will send the first round of this protocol, okay? Bob then will speak second, and he can send the first round and the second round at the same time. Alice can send now the second round because, well, the second round is independent from everything but the first round of Bob, and Alice has the first round of Bob. But Alice can also send the third round, because the third round, by definition, is independent from the third round of the other party. So Alice must be able to do that. And at the end of this, Bob can send his own third round. So now, what we have done here is that we have started from our assumption, which is like there exists a 3-round protocol in the simultaneous message model, and we have constructed a 4-round protocol in the alternated message model. And this protocol, by definition, is able to securely toss more than log n coins in such a way that both parties get the output. But that's not possible, right? Because we have just proven that it's not possible to have a 4-round protocol. So this means that in 3 rounds, we cannot do the coin tossing functionality. On the positive side, though, we can compute any functionality in 4 rounds in this alternated message model. Okay, and so this impossibility was proposed in Eurocrypt 2016, and also the construction, the 4-round construction based on indistinguishability obfuscation, was shown in the same work. And then later on, like actually, we shown that actually you don't need I/O. You can just use the same assumptions as the Katz-Ostrowski construction I showed you before. So there are, you need to be careful on when you design a protocol in this communication, using this communication channel, and in particular when you want to be round optimal. And there are 2 main issues. The first one is malleability, and the other is that when you compose multiple tools together, and you want to squeeze as much as possible the number of rounds, you may get problems in the security proof due to how the simulators of each individual tool work. If we have time, I'll show you an example of this. But first of all, what is the malleability problem? So one trivial idea to construct a 4-round protocol in this new communication model would be the following. So we know we have designed a 4-round protocol where only one party can get the output in the simultaneous model. Okay, that's one of the first things we have done. So we have a 4-round protocol. In this case, the gray party is the receiver. Okay, so but we said that now we have a simultaneous message model. So what we could do actually is that we could run 2 instances of the same protocol in parallel, and where in one execution Alice acts as the sender and Bob as the receiver, and in the other execution they reverse the roles. Okay, and it seems like we are done. It seems like it's quite easy to get regardless of the problem related to the fact that a corrupted Alice or a corrupted Bob can use different inputs in different executions. This is fixable. What is hard to fix is the following. So what is hard to fix is that you may have an adversary. Let's say that Bob is corrupted. That what does he do? It just mirrors the behavior of Alice. So basically, Bob, upon receiving a message, it just uses the same message that he receives and sends it back to Alice. So basically, Bob acts as a proxy between Alice and Alice. Okay? So what happens is that at the end of the protocol, Bob has just used all the messages of Alice, and so Alice will be able to, compute a function that now it's not clear what it is. It doesn't include the input of Bob at all, right? But even worse is the situation where Bob, instead of just forwarding these messages in a trivial way, he, for example, receives a message from Alice and flips a few bits of this message. So in particular, this can be problematic because most of the cryptographic objects we have seen so far, they are malleable. So for example, if you take a commitment, Elgamal commitment, it's quite malleable in the sense that if I receive a commitment of a message M, I can easily compute a commitment of a message M plus Y, okay, for a Y of my choice. So even though I don't break the security of the tool, I don't break the hiding, I can anyway null, I can anyway do something on the bits of the messages I receive in such a way that I compute a new message, a new commitment, for example, which has an input that is related to the input of the honest party. And now this is devastating for security, because this means that an adversary can always use an input which is related to the inputs of the honest party. And it's clear here that there is a problem, because now when you try to simulate, then like the input of the party will be somehow related to the input that the simulator is using, and then like security doesn't work anymore. So this is quite a complex problem to solve. The way to solve this problem is using tools that are non-malleable. For example, instead of using a commitment scheme that is malleable, we can use commitment schemes that are non-malleable, and that's how most of the works that do round optimal protocols in the simultaneous model work. So they rely on this special type of non-malleable commitment. I will not have the time to talk about those, but if you're interested, feel free to ask questions. I can say a few more words about them, but we will not have time to go into the details. Okay, but so far we have focused on two-party functionalities only. And we have shown that, okay, in the simultaneous model now, 4 rounds are sufficient, but we are interested in multi-party. We want to see now whether 4 rounds are also sufficient to compute any multi-party functionality. So in particular, the communication model we assume here is always the same, in the sense that each party can speak at the same time in each round, but each message will be a message sent over a broadcast channel. So we assume that each party has access to a broadcast channel, and in each round is like corresponds to a message going from a sender to all the participants to the protocol over a broadcast channel. So broadcast guarantees that basically, if an honest party receives a message M from some other party, then we know that all the honest parties have received the same message M. It's like there is an agreement, there is a consensus. Moreover, if an honest party does send a message, then we have the guarantee that all the honest parties will receive that message. There is no ambiguity in some sense of what someone sends and to whom. So the adversary cannot tamper with who is sending what to whom. And the minimal requirement, the minimal security requirement people want is, of course, simulation-based security, which we have discussed at the beginning. but it's simulation-based security with what it's called unanimous abort. So the unanimous abort property says the following. It says that either all the parties will get an output, or if an honest party does not get the output, okay, this means that an honest party abort for some reason, okay, for some reason which is due to a malicious behavior of one of the parties involved in the protocol. That's why someone may abort. But if one party aborts, unanimous abort requires that all the honest parties must abort as well. Okay. So most of the MPC protocols that are studied in the dishonest majority setting, the minimal property they are required to enjoy is the property of unanimous. Why is this property important? This is important because it gives an agreement on what's happening to the honest party. So for example, if I'm running a protocol, I abort, and I know that also many other parties have aborted, I can kind of say, okay, let's run this protocol again. I got an abort, and I know that if there are sufficiently many honest parties, I will have the support of these parties, and maybe it's an important property to have. Okay, so how do we design a protocol that is in the multi-party setting and that satisfies this notion of security? So the built-in block for all the round optimal protocols, so we show that you can actually do multi-party computation in 4 rounds only. The major building block that this type of protocols use are these MPC protocols that are secure against a weaker form of adversaries. So in Eurogroup 2018, it was shown how to construct a 4-round protocol that is not secure against corrupted adversaries, but it's secure against this special form of adversaries. So the first and the second round, the adversary can do anything he likes. And in the third round, we require the adversary to send the input and the randomness that he has used to compute the first, the second, and the third round. So basically, this can be seen as a simple proof to show to an honest party whether you are behaving honestly or maliciously. Okay. So we consider now this is a very strange setting. Okay, no protocol will ever be run in this way. Okay, this is just a security definition and a protocol proven under this security definition, which is weak, but that is anyway instrumental to then construct protocols that are secure against generic adversaries. Okay, so basically, what is possible to do is possible to prove that a protocol is secure under this setting if we have the guarantee that the adversary at the third and at the fourth round, anytime the adversary sends a message, he will also issue a proof that he is behaving correctly. What is the proof in this case? The proof is simple, just a pair input randomness that anyone can use to check whether the messages computed by the corrupted parties are computed accordingly to what the MPC protocol prescribes. Right? Because once that you fix the randomness and the input of a cryptographic protocol, okay, the protocol becomes deterministic. Okay, so if I receive a message computed as the output of a cryptographic protocol, and someone tells me, look, I've used this randomness and this input to execute these messages, I can actually check that that's true, because I can just take my algorithm, I take the input, the randomness, I run it again, and I compare what I get as the output to what I received from this party, in this case, from the corrupted party. Okay, so we are dealing here with a very kind adversary. They don't exist in the reality, right? But I'll show you now how to use a protocol that is secure in this setting to construct a protocol that is secure against any type of adversary. Polynomial time, probabilistic polynomial time adversaries. So in particular, so what we show here is like a compiler to show that if you give me a protocol that is secure in this setting, an adversary that works in the way I just said are called the semi-malicious adversary. We show how to lift the security of this protocol in a round-preserving way to obtain a protocol that so remains for rounds and that is secure against any type of adversaries. Okay, how does this compiler work? So we kind of need a way to, we know that an adversary in the real world will never give us any proof, any randomness, and any input, of course, like to prove it's that it is behaving honestly. Okay? Also, we cannot ask someone to give away the input. But what we can ask is to prove, at least in a zero knowledge way, that you're behaving honestly. And the nice thing about zero knowledge is that you can prove something without disclosing anything about your secret, about the witness. In particular, here the witness will be like pair randomness input, and the statement we want to prove is that these messages, in particular the third round, is computed honestly. So what we could do now is to run in parallel a zero knowledge proof. One, to prove that the first 3 rounds are computed honestly, and another zero knowledge proof to prove that the last round is computed honestly. Okay, so, and now, because the zero knowledge protocols are sound, and because the protocol that we are running here is semi-malicious, which means that it's secure as long as someone can guarantee can guarantee us that the messages are computed honestly, then the entire protocol here remains secure. So this approach, it's fine. The problem is that, and this is connected with Karim's question, is that in the plain model with falsifiable assumptions and with standard simulation-based security, we cannot get 3-round zero knowledge. We cannot get 3-round zero knowledge if you want like a good soundness. If you want soundness 1/2, like it's fine, we can do it. But here we're interested in having like good soundness. So if I receive a proof, I'm sure with probability 1 - negligible that the theorem is actually a true theorem. Okay. And as I mentioned before, like this was shown in
We mentioned it's in the case that we have falsifiable assumptions, but
right.
You know that with non-knowledge assumptions that are non-falsifiable, we can bypass this. But I guess we cannot use them in MPC because you want to have black box extraction, yeah? Because at the beginning you mentioned you cannot get access to the source code of the parties.
Exactly, yeah. So to do what you just said, you would need to change the definition of MPC and to say that, okay, now we do MPC, but with respect to simulators that are actually, non-black box, which is something to be honest, I don't know whether people have considered much this setting, but I think it would make sense as a
in my view, because if you use rewinding, so in my view they are quite similar. To say, let's use Damgar's knowledge assumption to say that given G and H, if you can come up with exponent of these 2 elements, so you know that it's X. So that's of course non-falsifiable assumption, but for me it's similar to the rewinding. So basically, but I know.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, and the question is like, but really, I'm really not that familiar with the area of research. The question would be now like, okay, what is the best, the optimal round complexity in that case?
Yes,
like,
with non-falsifiable assumptions.
With
yes.
non-falsifiable assumptions, exactly.
Yeah, I have seen 3 rounds, zero knowledge with non-falsifiable, but not basically with falsifiable. That's okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. No, thanks. No, that's a good point. Okay. Of security, there is a problem. So, but what can we do? So first of all, let me tell you a bit what is the problem. So the reason why it's crucial to prove, like to make sure that the third round we receive from a corrupted party is good, is well formed, is because if it's not, it may be that when an honest party sends its last round, this leaks everything about this input. Okay, so there is it's quite serious. Like, unless I'm sure that the third round is correct, if I compute my fourth round based on this ill-formed third round, then security is completely lost. And so, actually, to solve this problem, instead of using zero knowledge, we can use something different, which is this conditional disclosure of secrets. So conditional disclosure of secret is very similar to witness encryption. It works in this way. So you have a message. You can encrypt this message, and only when you have a witness, you can decrypt the message, okay? Again, it's like witness encryption, where to do the encryption, you encrypt like your key is like an NP statement. And now if like you have the witness for this NP statement, you can decrypt. There are some differences, but that's more or less like, they're very similar. So now what can we do? So let's say that we have this tool. So we said that when the third round is not well formed, we have a problem, because if we now send the fourth round, the adversary may understand our input. So what we can do instead is to send an encryption of our last round in such a way that the other party can see what is inside this encryption only under the condition that it has a witness that proves its honest behavior in the computation of all the previous messages, and in particular of the third message. Okay, so it's basically like I'm not proving to you that I did the third round in a good way. You know, I may do it bad, but the problem is that if I do it bad, it means that I will not be able to decrypt the first message, so I will not be able to compute the output, and in particular, I will not be able to do anything malicious, because like your fourth round is encrypted. On the other hand, if the third round is good, is computed honestly, I can see what is inside this encryption, and this is harmless, because by definition, when the messages are computed correctly, I can rely on the semi-malicious security of the underlying protocol. Okay, so in this case, the witness, the key, will be this pair input randomness, and this encryption scheme will give away the fourth round message only under the condition that the input and the randomness explains correctly the messages, the blue messages generated by this purple party here. So this tool can actually be constructed using witness encryption. So one thing that we want to do here is also to realize our protocols based on simple, general, and well-understood assumptions. So if we now want to construct witness encryption, we need to rely on I/O, which in turn rely on a variety of assumptions. over a variety of LWE type of assumptions. But let's say, here we want to use something simpler, something like oblivious transfer, trapdoor permutations, one-way functions, this type of tools. What can we do? So the first observation is that sometimes witness encryption is a bit too strong. So witness encryption is very powerful and it's very nice because it's non-interactive. With witness encryption, you do an encryption using the statement and a message, and that's all. That's you get your cybertext. To generate your ciphertext or to generate your decryption. And here we have rounds. So the idea is to implement this conditional disclosure of secret, which is a form of interactive witness encryption. And the way we construct it is using oblivious transfer and garbage circuit. Okay, we use more or less always the same tools here. Okay, this is OT, just as a reminder, we have mentioned it. And this is like how the information works. So the circuit that we will be garbling here is a circuit G, which has this specific form. This circuit takes as input a witness, and if the witness satisfies some condition, it will return a message. Okay, and this message is hardwired in the description of the function G. Okay. Now, what we know is that as long as we give the right amount of labels of keys to an evaluator, everything will be protected. In particular, the message will be protected. Okay. Good. So how does it work? That's very simple, because now what we can do is just that we just need the sender and the receiver to engage in an oblivious transfer protocol, which is used to retrieve the right labels of the garbage circuit. So the receiver here, the input of the receiver will be a witness. Okay, it's a bit string which represents the witness, and the sender input is, as always, all the pairs of these that represent the labels of the garbage circuit. Okay, so this means that now, if the receiver does have a witness that satisfies some condition, it's not important. Here we are thinking about it can be any condition, okay? And moreover, if the receiver has the garbage circuit C, he can run the evaluation algorithm. And if Y, what we denote with Y here, is actually a valid witness, the receiver will get the message. Otherwise, he will not get the message. Okay? As simple as that. And now we are basically almost done. Because what we can do is that instead of using witness encryption here, in the last round, we will just send a garbage circuit that encodes our fourth round message. The purple party here will be able to evaluate this garbage circuit and get the message, the fourth round message, only if she knows and she can provide a witness where the witness consists of the randomness and the input used in the generation of these light blue messages here on the left, which denote the messages of the semi-malicious problem. All right. So there are that's just one of the things you need to do to design your random optimal MPC protocol. There are many other issues, and again, there is still the malleability issues. The malleability issue we have not touched, and but those are in general quite complex protocol. And just recently we have been able to obtain those. So the protocol I just sketched now appeared in 2020. Okay, so it's relatively recent, And there are other issues that we will see soon related to malleability. Okay? So, so just as a quick recap now, what we have shown is that in this model, dishonest majority, no setup, adversaries rushing, black box simulation, standard assumption. We have seen for round MPC, we can for any function, and we do security with unanimous support. Okay. But the question is like now whether we can do something better than unanimous support. So something better here means that we cannot hope to achieve anyway fairness, because we have proven at the beginning of the lecture that fairness is not possible. But can we do something that is anyway better than unanimous support, but not as good as fairness? This is identifiable on board. Okay, so what we would like ideally to have is that if there is actually on board, if some honest parties are not able to complete the computation, then these honest parties, it would be great if they could agree on who led to this abort. So identifiable abort property tells you that, requires that either all the honest parties are able to complete the computation successfully and get the output of the function, or they are corrupt party for the non-success of the computation. And this becomes a much interesting property now, because what we can do is that we could exclude this person from other runs of the computation. Okay, so this is a very desirable property, but the question is like, this seems, I mean, this is a stronger property, and the question now is whether we can still do it in 4 rounds. Okay, and the answer is yes. So now the question I have for Karim is, so whether I can go over and show how to design a protocol with identifiable aborts, or we can just wrap up and or I can just wrap up and like take some questions. How do you want me to proceed?
We can ask now if there is a question, and then if you think that we can, because usually the lecture is 2 hours, but it's supposed to be 90 minutes presentation and 30 minutes questions. So we already had 10 minutes break and not so often questions from audience. So we can even wrap up quickly if you want, I guess.
Okay.
So it's not a serious, but I don't see question even in the chat or even in the Discord channel. So yeah, there's a general question, but not related to MPC. Yeah, we can wrap up quickly. We don't maybe need to go to the details so often.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So, I'm not going to the details of this, but basically, yeah, the answer is yes. So we can do this. We can design such a protocol. And what you can do is actually to show that any protocol that satisfies security with unanimous abort can be turned into a protocol that satisfies identifiable abort. And another reason why identifiable abort is important is because if you, for example, ever want to so one problem I mentioned is that like fairness is not possible in this setting, right? But if you have some strong setup, for example, if you do have a blockchain, you can kind of enforce fairness in the sense that you may think about running one of these protocols over a blockchain in such a way that when something goes wrong, and there is, for example, without risking of penalizing someone that is honest, is by using a protocol that satisfies exactly this definition. Okay. So there are many applications for security with identifiable abort. So now to wrap up a bit, so we have shown that like we can design these protocols, and that's great. We can design them from standard assumptions, polynomial time assumptions, and like for example, just by assuming oblivious transfer. Okay, so oblivious transfer gives you like round optimal multi-party computation, which is quite a nice claim. So one thing that some of you may have found unsatisfactory is that all these MPC protocols require the use of broadcast. And now, if you look under the hood and you look how broadcast works, so realizing broadcast itself is not an easy task. Realizing broadcast requires by itself honest majority. For example, if you don't have any form of setup, you need honest majority. So the requirement of a broadcast channel seems it's quite strong, but actually what you can show is that you don't really need broadcast, for example, in all the rounds of your computation. So if you want unanimous abort, you can just use peer-to-peer channels in the first 3 rounds, and then just use broadcast in the last round. Or even better, if you don't even care about some honest parties will be able to get the output, some others don't. Then actually you don't need broadcast at all. You can just run your protocol over peer-to-peer channels. On the negative side is that like the notion of identifiable abort instead, we can show that you do need 4 rounds of broadcast. So otherwise, there is no way you can do security with identifiable abort. Okay. And yeah, I think this ends the lecture, and I'm happy to take questions here or even offline. I mean, you can email me. I'm happy to answer. So yeah.
Okay, thank you. I see one hand raised. Just give me a second to. Yeah. Go ahead, I guess. You can unmute yourself, Shahla, now.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, very well.
Okay, thank you very much, Michele, for your very nice presentation. It was perfect. I wanted to ask one question related to this protocols that you mentioned. That, for example, in some protocols, we can say that okay, let's assume we have, for example, malicious parties. And then if the protocol is identifiable abort, which able to identify them, so we can exclude them from the protocol, which means after 3 rounds, then we do not have any malicious party. So in this case, can we say that, okay, we have guaranteed output delivery? Or, yeah, for example, can we claim that our protocol is robust? Or no, robustness is something else? Or, for example, guaranteed output delivery means that when we run just once in one go, we should get the result. Can you please explain this for me? It is not clear.
Yeah, sure. So there is a problem. It makes sense. Everything you said makes perfect sense. And by the way, robustness, to me, the way I understand it is that it means the same as guaranteed output delivery, but there may be a subtlety in the definition. So you tell me if you think that's the case. So, but basically the problem is the following. let's say you run the protocol once. So you are correct to say that if you have T corrupt parties, I know that if I run the protocol T plus 1 times, at some point I will get the output. The problem is that you are not anymore realizing the functionality F. So in the following sense, in the ideal, you're supposed to have, in the ideal world, like you query the functionality only once and you get an output. Now what happens is that an adversary could do the following. He could start running the protocol and then he gets the output and he aborts. Exclude this party and you start a new protocol with the different sets of inputs now. So you start, right, because you're excluding one party, but that, you know, the adversary now already has an output of the computation, which is computed on n inputs, okay, over the n inputs of the n parties. And now you say, okay, you go away, let's start a new computation. This time I have n minus 1 inputs. You do the computation, and now you have another adversarial party that says, okay, got it, I have the output, I abort now. Okay, and now what you have is that this coalition of corrupted parties have two outputs computed on two different sets of input. And this is a big leakage now, right? Because you have that the same input of an honest party has been used to do two types of computations. So you have a leakage that is much more than the leakage you're supposed to have if you look at the ideal world that says, give me your input, here you are your output, end of the story. So basically this approach is not simulatable. Yeah.
Okay, then, yeah, it seems Shahla also convinced. Thank you very much, Michele. Yeah, I see some people just thanked you and not question. Yeah. So yeah, then let me check Discord server. Yeah, I don't see question also here as, and then we have to thank you again. Thank you very much for your great presentation. So have a nice evening then.
Thanks a lot for having me, and yeah, have a nice evening. Thank you very much.
Bye.
See you soon.